Hi, my name is Becca from Claritystamp and welcome to YouTube Tuesday. Today, I wanted to show you how to do this project incorporating some of Tina's most beautiful designs. Now, these are some of my personal favourites. Let me show you. So, we've got 4 of them in a set, Tina's henna plates. Now, this one here is my personal favourite. It's called Tina's Henna Dreamcatcher, and I loved it so much that when she submitted them to the office, I was on Barbara's case. I think she got a bit fed up of me. I was like, can we have them? Can we have them? Can we have them, please? And now we have them. So you'll see that there's so many lovely elements to this plate, and the design team have created some fantastic samples using it. So head on over to the website and check it out. Now today we're going to be focusing on this gorgeous Dreamcatcher design here, and we're going to be using this little corner element. Now if I take you back to the actual project itself, you'll notice that there's some grid work in the bottom. This is another one of Tina's really clever ideas. Let me show you quickly. Now, I am not a patient person, so when Tina designed these I was over the moon. These are her grid work pattern plates, and this is grid work made easy. So you'll see that we've got a straight set, so we've got 2 border plates here. One of them is a straight pattern, and then you've got the straight basic to accompany it, and then we've got the same with the diagonal plates here. Now I absolutely love these. Like I say, grid work made easy if you're impatient like I am. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, we're going to create this lovely double lined frame around the outside of my design, and I took this from our nested scalloped rectangle plate. Now I used the second one in, and this plate is great. You can create a professional looking double line, or you can have the scallops, you can have both, whatever you want to go for. It is a lovely plate. So I'm going to attach my piece of parchment to my plate using Groovi tabs, and this plate sits lovely in the calligraphy plate mate. Check out our website for that. So I'm going to rub the parchment with the tumble dryer sheet. Now this just helps the tool glide, and using my Groovi guard to hold the work flat, I'm going to be using the stylus end of my tool from the starter kit. So in the starter kit you get 2 double-ended tools, and the one you want is the number 1 tool, so the one without a ball on the end. And all I'm going to do is simply get in the groove and trace out my frame. So there we go, as easy as that. We have a lovely double line frame to start off with. So I'm going to remove my piece of parchment, and we don't need these anymore, so I'm just going to put them to one side. So now I'm going to bring in the star of the show, Tina's Henna Dreamcatcher, and I'm going to house it in one of my favourite bits of kit. It's the plate mate for A4 square plates that Jim and Barbara at the office designed together. Now you'll notice that it comes in 2 halves. Don't worry about that. We designed it like that because it's quite a large piece of kit, and if we send it in the post, you know, if we send it like that, there's a chance it could break. You know, it makes it easier for you to travel with. And all I do is I hold it together with 2 Groovi tabs, and these tabs have been on since I got it about a year ago, so don't worry about that. So I'm just going to house Tina's Henna Dreamcatcher in this plate mate, and I'm just going to line up my work. So I want it sat about there. So we're still working on the back of the parchment, and I'm just going to give another quick rub just to make sure my tool works okay, and then I'm going to start embossing. So you want to stick with your stylus tool when you're embossing just elements of the design. Now see, I slid out there, that's fine. As long as you're not in the groove, you won't mark the parchment at all. But when I get to these circles, you have to think ahead a little bit with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to the number 2 tool, which has got a little ball in the end, and I'm just going to lightly emboss this. Now the reason I'm doing this on these circles is because I'm going to add white work to them later, and it just makes it a little bit easier if the lines are a bit more faint. It's not as harsh as the number 1 tool. So just keep flipping your tool and lightly embossing these little circles. So there we go. We've got the whole of the Dreamcatcher embossed. Now let me show you what this looks like. So I'm going to turn my light wave off. And maybe if I got a bit of black on the background, you can see. So I've got lovely crisp white lines where I want them, and I've used my number 2 tool to lightly emboss these circles. It is much easier to achieve this lovely white work effect when the lines are a bit more faint. It's just easier to get in. So what I'm going to do next is turn my light wave back on, and I'm going to show you how to do the corners. And as well, if you see on the design in the Dreamcatcher, there are some lines within the 2 circles on the outside. Now I've chosen to leave these out so I can colour it in solidly. Now it's completely up to you. This is what I love about the Groovi system. You can just take and leave exactly what you want. So to put these corners in, what I do is I line up these teardrops with the edge of my frame. So can you see how they're just sitting on my frame? And I'm going to stick it down, and I'm going to emboss these out. Right, there we go. I'll bring my black mat in again, and you can see that this is now sat perfectly in the corner of the design. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the other corner in this side. So maybe now is a good time to stick the kettle on. So there we go, we've got the other corner in, absolutely no problem whatsoever. You can see that I've got these 2 corners perfectly in place. Now if we go back to the actual design, you can see that I've got 2 more corners here, but we'll worry about those later. For now, what we're going to do is a bit of white work. So I've got my pink Excellent mat from Pergamano. Now I quite like this, it's nice and squishy. You can just squish it up. If you're getting angry, squish it up and throw it at the wall. But if you open it up, it's a lovely surface to work on. It's silicone, and it's better for those of us, like me, who are a little bit too heavy-handed sometimes. Now, with the black foam, I just tend to go straight through it because I'm like a bull in a china shop. So what you want to do is choose the largest ball tool possible that fits inside these little circles. So I think I'm going to go with the number 3 tool on this one in the start kit. And with these little circles, to avoid when getting a black hole in the centre, what you want to do is put your tool, still working on the back, onto the circle, and you want to move up and down, side to side, round and round. You see? And you don't have a black hole in the centre of that, it's just a nice white bead. Now don't worry if it's not as perfectly white as the one on my sample at the end. This is just the first layer. White work takes a few layers to get it perfectly white. So up and down, side to side, round and round. Up and down, side to side, round and round. So that's all the big beads done. But you'll notice here that these ones are quite minuscule, so I'm just going to switch to a smaller tool. So I'm going to go to my number 2 tool, which is the one with the tiny ball on the end, using the same technique, up and down, side to side, round to round. I'm just going to get into these little beads. So there we go. That's our first layer of white work. And because it's quite a small area, you'll see that they show up whiter faster. If you were working on a larger area, sometimes it'd look a bit grey at this stage, but you can see that it's quite white and it's not actually far off the finished piece. I think I only put about 2 layers on this one. So now we're going to look at the white work on the feathers. Now this is a little trick that I learned from Barbara when shading feathers. So you can see here, if I just show it to the camera, that when you do the white work on the feathers, I look at the curve of the centre bit and I can see that it's curving along this side a bit. So when it is curving that way, you want to flick your white work downwards like this. And to add the shading and the depth, you go to the opposite side here and then shade upwards. And you can see how it gives you these lovely 3D feathers. Isn't Barbara clever? I love her. She's great. So, going back to my piece, I'm going to start with my number 4 tool. This is the biggest tool in the starter kit, and because this is quite an open area, I'm just going to get in and flick. It's kind of like a matchstick motion. You want to flick upwards. So if this was your piece of parchment here, and this is your tool, you almost want to flick upwards like that. So you're putting more pressure on at the start and less when you're taking your tool off the parchment. This will give you a lovely shaded effect. So don't worry at first if you turn it around and it's not as brilliantly white as what you're hoping it's going to be at the end. It just needs a couple of layers to it. So now I've done the downwards bit, I'm going to bring the flicking motion upwards on the opposite side to create that lovely shaded effect. So now when I get to the last feather, what I said before about looking for the curve of the centre point, you'll see that this curve here goes opposite to this one at the end. So I'm simply just going to do it the opposite way around and flick outwards from this side of the centre line, turn it round and flick upwards from the other side. Then when we turn it around, you'll see that we're on our way to achieving these lovely 3D feathers. So probably what it needs is an extra layer or two, and then they'll be there. So what we need to do now is let this rest a little bit. What we do when we do white work is we stress the parchment and it needs a break in between. So we're going to leave it here and move on to the next bit. So whilst we'll let the white work have a little rest, we're going to move on to this lovely grid work down here. Now for this, I don't need my pink mat, but I do need my white super foam, which sits on top of my light wave. Oh, let's get rid of these plates. They're in the way now. So turning my light wave on, and I'm going to start with the straight grids. So using my border plate mate to house my plates, I'm going to use this pattern along here. Now they look like little squares or little crosses or little diamonds. Oh, I don't know. But anyway, it's an absolutely beautiful pattern, and that's what we're going to start with to create this bottom piece. So when you're perforating, you want to work on the opposite side to the parchment you've been working on. So we've been working on the back to emboss that outline and give us this lovely white work. So now we're going to flip it to the front, and I'm just going to line this design up to the bottom and try and get it so it's even on either side. Now can you see here I've got a line of dots there and a line of dots here, so that is pretty even. I'm happy with that. So these grids are designed to work with our bold tools. So Pergamano have a range of bold tools, and I really like them because they create nice round even holes, and it just makes it easier for me when I further down the line when I do my Picot cutting, and I just generally think they look nicer. Now because of the nature of the design that I'm working with, I'm going to start off with my 4 needle bold tool. So this will just speed up the process going along. So I'm going to use my Groovi guard, and I'm just going to hold my work flat, and I'm just going to perforate deeply in to the grid. And you can see how fast this is. Look how quickly I'm getting through the design. Between Pergamano and Tina Cox, they've really sped up grid work for me. And because I'm not a patient person, it's an absolute delight to work with these tools, and I can achieve this beautiful lacework, grid work patterns without a whole lot of effort. And that's what I like. You know, we all have busy lives these days, and it's just great just to be able to pick it up and achieve such professional results without having to spend days on it. So there we are. See how fast that was? It's brilliant. So the only thing is, you can see there's a little row of holes here and a little row of holes here. So I'm just going to take my 2 needle bowls and quickly just add those in. Now I'll just turn my light wave off for a second and bring my black mat in so you can see what I've done. So you can see here that we've got our pattern in place there. Now they're lovely even holes and it looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm really excited with how this is going to look. Da, 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 da. So going back to the grids, I'll show you how they work. So now what you want to do is you want to remove your pattern grids and you want to bring in your straight basic grid. So the way Tina's designed this is genius. I was so happy when she came out with this. I was just watching the telly like, I can't wait to play with this. So you'll see here that these patterns, if you keep your eye on this corner and this corner, everything else should slot in place. So I'm using the top row of holes just to make it a little bit easier on myself. And there we go. And you can see that by overlaying the pattern on the basic grid, the holes just sort of fall into place and you can see exactly where you're going to emboss these lovely dots within the gridwork design. So if you can see here, we've got these lovely embossed dots here, and that is how you would achieve them, by simply just laying your pattern over the basic and lining it up. So you can see where we're going to go now. So taking my number 2 tool from the starter kit, I'm just going to get in the hole and give it a wiggle. Get in the hole and give it a wiggle. And what I'm going to do is just fill in the blank areas where I don't have holes. So there we go. So we filled in all the empty gaps with the dots. Oh, missed a couple. There we go. That's what I love about this light wave. You can just see at a glance where you've missed out. So I'll bring in my black mat and I'll just show you what we've done. And look how quick that was. That's mad. You would have to count that out on a basic grid, but because this pattern grid is just so much easier. So let's go back to the finished piece now. So you can see that I've encased this grid work with another set of double lines. So how we do that is I'm going to go back to the plate we used at the start, the nested rectangle scallops, scalloped rectangles, rectangle scallops, whatever you want. So working on the back, as we always do with embossing, I'm just going to find a line, use a long line for this, and I'm just going to line it up so there's a double line right above where I've been doing my grid work. And same as before, just number 1 tool. Make sure you don't go over your frame, you just want it touching your frame, not going over. And I'm just going to put this double line in place to encase my grid work. So there we have it. How easy is that? It's just mad how easy Groovi makes parchment, and so enjoyable as well. So we can see here that I've used the diagonal grid to create an extra layer of it, but I kind of like just the look of the single one. So I think I'm just going to stick with this for the purpose of it. There we go, we've got choices. We always have choices. So now going back to the white work, we've let our parchment rest for a little bit. So I'm just going to put another layer on. It's exactly the same as what I was doing before. Up and down, side to side, round and round. And of course the flicking with the feathers. So if you want to go stick the kettle on, I'm just going to quickly put another layer onto my white work. Okay, so there we go. And you can see how instantly this looks much more white than what it did before. And we're not far off the finished results. Now, I was thinking about putting an extra layer on this, but I kind of like the muted effect, especially compared to how bright the beads are. So actually, I'm not going to overcook it, I'm just going to leave it there. So I mentioned before with these corners here that I have to wait until we get to this stage to put the other corners in. So I'm going to flip back to my light wave and Tina's lovely plate, and I'm just going to quickly add the corners in exactly the same as I did before, working on the back of the parchment as we always do with embossing. I'm just going to line up these two teardrops with the very edge of my frame and then get in the groove. Fabulous, so there we go. Let's turn my light wave off and I'll show you what I've been up to. So there we go, we've got 4 lovely corners, and I'm just going to quickly bring in my pink mat, turn it over, and just very quickly add the white work in so we're all even, all the way around. Brilliant. Okie doke. So the next thing I'm going to look at is this dotted border around the edge of my work. Now this is really, really easy to do. So what you do is you go back to Tina's grid. Now you want the same basic grid as we were using before, the straight grid. So bringing this back in and turning my light wave on. All I'm going to do is I'm going to use the points of this design here as like a reference point so I can line up, and I'm going to use the very top edge of dots because it's just easier to see. If you're trying to pick it out of a jungle here, you never know if you're going to get it right. So if you just use the top line, there we go, and it just lines up so easy. Now this is what I love about the grids. You can create lovely dotted borders with this as well as some lovely grid work. So again, number 2 tool with a little ball on the end, and I'm just going to add my dots all the way around the edge to create my frame. So we're nearly there. So now when you get to the top of your design, you just stop at the edge, carry on through the top line and just continue after it. You don't want to go straight through it, because if you look at the finished piece here, you'll see that I go around it and it still looks quite elegant as it is. So I'm going to take this piece off. I think I say so a lot. How many times have I said so in this video? I don't know, quite a bit. So grabbing my black mat, just to show you where we're at now. So we've done our white work, we've got our grid work in place, and we've got a lovely elegant border in place as well. So I think now we'll move on to some colouring. So I'm going to turn my light wave off and we're going to be colouring on the back. Now I'm going to be using Perga colours today. I really like these. They've got a very fine thin edge one side and more of a bullet nib this end. So this end is bigger for like larger areas, which is what we're going to go for today, but you can get in really, really tight with this end nib as well. And I'm sort of going to go for like teals and blues and the sort of soft purples today, but of course, you know, just choose whatever colours you're happy working with. And it's literally just colouring, you know, there's no skill required for this one. Just stay in the lines, or just don't stay in the lines. Do whatever you want to do, it's your project. That's what I like about art. Art's so individual. And all I'm doing is just laying colour down onto my piece, and it is as quick as that. Can you see? But then, for example, if I wanted to get into this really tight little, I'm going to call it a diamond. It looks like a diamond. Let's go with a diamond. You can can see I can just take a more fine nib and I can go around as easy as that. So there we go. Now, I've done this from the back and you may be looking at it thinking, geez, woman, you can't colour at all. But then when we flip it over to the front, look how different that looks. It looks so lovely. So how you get into this very thin lines in the frame, because that's the last bit I'm going to do, is just add a bit of colour there. Now this is another trick that I learned from Barbara, clever woman she is using the fine end of the pergoliners. I'm just going to line up my ruler so it sits just within that frame, and then you just draw down. You can see how quickly you can add colour to your frame doing that. So there we go. Now one thing you really don't have to worry about too much is going over the white lines. I mean, try not to go over them to the point where it is poking on the outside, but if I was to add colour on the back of these beads, look, I'll even show you. So if I was to add a bit of purple here, big blob of purple, when you turn it over, this is what I added the purple to, you'll see the white work always prevails. That's the beauty of parchment. I think it's so very forgiving. So now we've hit this point, I just want to do a little bit of Picot cutting, because when we use our designer parchment on the back, when you Picot cut out elements like this, you can see how the paper really pops through. It is lovely. So we do have another YouTube video showing you how to do the Picot cutting, so check out our channel for tips on that. But just quickly, I just pop my thumb and my index finger through my scissors with the curves up, get in the holes, bring my scissors flush down to the parchment, twist them and snip. Now with designs like this, you can cut out quite quickly, because instead of carrying on turning your parchment to do this bit, what you can do is cut all the bits down the edge like this, and this speeds it up immensely. So for example, if I just get to this point and I've cut all these out, I can twist it and I can do the same with the other edge. And this just quickens it up hugely. So you can see all these are done, and within like seconds, I've got it cut out without having to twist my parchment a million times. It's great. So before I twist my parchment and work down this line, I'm going to do the same with the other elements to my piece. So every element that's facing inwards and that you get your scissors over the waist, just go through and do those, and this will speed up the process hugely. So there we go. We've got to the end. Oh, I've just missed one here. There we go. So this is my favourite bit about doing it like this. It's like a big reveal at the end. So I lift it up and oh, there we go. We have it, a lovely gridwork panel. Woo! I'm so pleased with that. So there's only one element left that I really want to show you, and that's just how to get these silver highlights in here. So we have choices. We can go for the Pergamano gel pen, which I'm quite a fan of, but also on our website we do these Pilot silver markers, and I really, really like these. They're just so nice to use. Well, I really like both of them, so I'm going to go with the gel pen today, I think. Yeah, let's go with the gel pen. So I just want to colour in these areas, and if you move in little circles around your design, the ink will come out a lot smoother. You'll find if you start working in lines, the colour will come out quite liney. If you work in lines, your colour will come out liney. Obvious fact from Becca, #1. But what I'm saying is, when you move your pen in circular motions, the ink just flows out of the pen in a really nice smooth way. So it creates this smooth layer of colour. I think this is one of 6 gel pens that we do at Pergamano, and there's some lovely colours on the website, so be sure to check them out. I'm a little bit boring. I always go for the silver. Always, always. Is that boring? Silver's not boring. No, it's not boring. So there we have it. So we've got a lovely silver highlight. So just to show you the difference, I use my Pilot pen on this one, which gives you more like a glossy sheen. And then I've got the Pergamano gel pen, which is a little bit more muted. So it's just whatever works best for you. Now the next stage will be just to quickly trim down my work. So I've got my glass mat, I've got my ruler, and I've got my craft knife too. I love this Pergamano ruler. So we used this edge here for when we were doing the colouring, but now we're going to switch over to this metal edge. And because I think it's quite nice on the inside, it's quite an elegant design. Using the metal edge, I'm just going to quickly cut pieces away and just trim it down. I just want quite a nice plain border on the outside, because it's quite detailed on the inside. Okay, so there we have it. Now all I did was simply mat and layer it onto some Indian summer paper and some white card, just trimmed down to size. Unfortunately, there's not a specific size for this. What I tend to do is just go for it, and then I just choose whatever card fits my project. So just have a play around. And what I've done is I've attached the parchment to my paper using brads. Now we do have another YouTube video where we explain how to use brads, so check that out. And then I used Crafter's Companion glue runner just to attach it to my card at the end. And there we go, there we have it, the finished project. Now I do hope you like what I've been doing today. If you do, please like and subscribe to our channel. Barbara has loads more inspiration for you. She writes daily in a blog, barbaragrayblog.com, so head over there and see what she's up to. And if you've liked anything that I've used today, please check out our website, www.claritystamp.com. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.